2018, the age of innovation. In the last 50 years, we've witnessed our world transform before our very eyes. As discovery is driven by creativity and curiosity, we've been able to achieve important feats as a human race that our ancestors only dreamed of. We've watched as Neil Armstrong made history as the first man on the moon. Important discoveries in chemistry have led to the development of medications and immunizations that have improved life expectancy and have controlled the spread of diseases that once threatened entire civilizations. With the invention of smartphones, we can talk to our loved ones and see their faces in real time from across the country. We can retrieve information from the internet in seconds, check in on flights, and even change the channels on our televisions. Cars equipped with autopilot can drive themselves with minimal human intervention. Virtual reality glasses and similar equipment allow us to be anywhere in the world we'd like to be with a little imagination. Paleontologists use 3D scanning to study and replicate prehistoric life like dinosaurs and Neanderthals. These studies provide insight into the history of the Earth, such as the evolution of humans, catastrophic events, climate changes, and plant life. There are a lot of innovative technologies that fall under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. Specifically, for the right price, you can have a full-fledged conversation with a robot who can simulate human behavior, mannerisms, and facial expressions. To top it all off, scientists believe we should be able to successfully clone the first human being in the next 12 years. So here is the million-dollar question. Is technology progressing faster than human psychology? Modern technology fosters education, innovation, creativity, discovery, and growth at even the most basic level. So why do we insist on retaining such archaic moral codes that unjustifiably disenfranchises an entire populace? In layman's terms, why are women still considered inferior to men? Let's explore this topic and how it is reflected in the world of technology. In an article published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, the authors have traced the origins of gender roles as far back as the pre-industrial period. In the agricultural industry, there were two methods of cultivating soil: shifting and plowing. Shift cultivation required the use of handheld tools, such as the hoe or the digging stick. Shift cultivation required someone to double back and do the weeding, which was typically done by women and children. Thus, societies that practiced shift cultivation employed both women and men to complete the task. Plow cultivation required significant upper body strength to either pull the plow or control the animal that pulls it. When a plow was used, there was less of a need for weeding, which was also eliminating the need for women and children to participate. Thus, societies that practiced plow cultivation developed a gender-based division of labor where men worked outside of the home and women worked inside of the home. As human civilizations evolved, the persistence of traditional gender norms remained the same. This is illustrated by the present-day culture of India. From a historical perspective, India's ideology of son preference has been traced back as far as the 17th century. Expectant parents knew that girls came with the burden of her eventually being married, which was often accompanied with expensive dowries on behalf of the bride's family. Therefore, infant girls were perceived as a drain on the wealth of the family. Dowry violence and bride burning was perpetuated by the husband or in-laws in an effort to extort a higher dowry from the bride's family. Upon the death of her husband, the widow often sacrificed her own life in a practice called sati, where she immolates herself along with her husband's corpse during cremation. Because of these ancient traditions ingrained in the fabric of the culture, practices that supported the subjugation of the Indian woman gained popularity throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. These practices include using sex determination technology to detect and abort female fetuses and intentional neglect and malnutrition of infant girls. The marginalization of the Indian woman throughout the history of the culture instigates the gender bias in hiring decisions observed in present-day India. Employers in India believe that because a woman's primary focus is domestic matters, such as childbearing, caring for the elderly, and supporting her husband, hiring a woman constitutes a risk that her domestic responsibilities would take priority over her career, up to and including resignation from her post to attend to her domestic obligations. Today, women in India have unequal access to technology due to the gender-biased belief systems that impose restrictions on the education and mobility of women. Infrastructural inadequacies, higher literacy rates, and fines for operating mobile devices support the patriarchal regimes of control and surveillance. In urban areas where societal norms are less rigid, literacy rates are much higher and women have the opportunity to earn degrees. Despite the increase of women who have earned engineering degrees between 1980 and 2000, unemployment rates are 5 times higher than that of their male counterparts with equal education and skill levels. There have been numerous government and private sector-led initiatives to bridge the gender gap in employment in the IT industry. Despite these initiatives, women are often relegated to entry-level positions that place women in supportive roles instead of leadership roles. They're forced to settle for poorly negotiated contracts and wages that are inconsistent with their credentials. Job security and opportunities for advancement are just fallacies. The average Indian woman in 2002 earned 60% of a man's salary in the same capacity, and women occupied only 3% of the managerial positions in the business sector. In the home, although the woman is not expected to contribute financially, there is an increasing demand for literate brides among the higher socioeconomic levels of the society. However, young educated men contend that educating women and enabling their access to technology can be beneficial to them by adapting and in using it to support the patriarchal structure that's already in place. The following table depicts the roles of the public and private sphere in India. Traditionally, men's work has been associated with the public sphere of paid labor, economic power, and political influence. These traits are considered masculine, and they're encouraged in the workforce. In contrast, women's work has been associated with the domestic world of home, children, and reproduction. These feminine traits, which offer no economic value, are often reflected in the workforce in India. Women who fail to observe the dichotomy between gender roles and gender stereotyped labor often find themselves at the mercy of their antithetical superiors. Now, let's fly this plane back home. Although women in America's workforce approach equality with men in non-STEM fields, they earned approximately 20 to 30% of the highest degrees in STEM in 2009. Suspected contributory factors include cultural stereotypes, differential encouragement to pursue careers in science and mathematics, and gender differences in self-efficacy. In an effort to understand the possible causation of the underrepresentation of women in STEM career fields, Miami University researchers surveyed a sample of 360 students on their quest to find clues. 207 women and 153 men between the ages of 18 and 43 were given a list of careers that were broken down into 3 categories: STEM careers, female stereotypic careers, and male stereotypic careers. They were asked to rate agentic or communal goals by importance, rate their own individual interest in each career, and how each career fulfilled agentic or communal goals in their own opinions. The results of the survey supported the researchers' original hypothesis. Agentic goals were associated with masculism, and communal goals were associated with feminism. That was pretty obvious, right? But STEM careers were perceived to be incongruent with communal goals. In fact, they perceived STEM careers to afford communion even less than male stereotypic careers. In 2002, 47% of the working population of the United States was female. Yet, the Information Technology Association of America found that between 1996 and 2002, the percentage of women IT professionals rose from 25% to 25.3%. Additionally, researchers surveyed 340 IT companies and determined that only 13% of upper-level hires were women. Another survey of women executives found that 52% of its respondents reported male stereotyping and preconceptions about women. They found that supervisors were unlikely to attribute the performance of female IT employees to efforts or skills, but rather to luck or lack of task difficulty. One important reason for resistance to women as heads of subsidiaries was a lack of personal experience of working with such women and a lack of role models in these top positions. Overall, gender schemas function covertly, making it harder for individuals to see that they're putting women at a disadvantage. As we discussed earlier, culture assigns emotional and behavioral roles to men and women. Children raised in gender polarizing societies internalize the ideology that's most influential to them. They learn to evaluate the gender appropriateness of certain behaviors, activities, and attire, essentially becoming gender conformists or nonconformists in their formative years. Androcentrism refers to the way many phenomena are defined from a male point of view, thus creating a category defined as male and another category defined as other. Since the male point of view creates the standard, anything inconsistent with this category is considered a deviation from the standard, therefore inferior. Everything is defined in terms of the significance to males rather than its own terms. As a whole, this theory implies that individuals unconsciously become participants in the social reproduction of male power. As we wrap up our discussion, let's discuss the policies currently being implemented to change the narrative once and for all. In 2003, the World Summit on the Information Society assembled in Geneva to formulate plans to promote the objectives of the United Nations Millennium Declaration. These policies, among many other things, focused on gender equality and the empowerment of women through access to technology. The Commission on the Status of Women urged that the United Nations should include at appropriate levels of government ICT education for girls and women in the curricula of all educational levels, from early childhood to tertiary level, and in continuing education to promote and ensure women's full participation in the information society. The preparatory committee worked with the WSIS Gender Caucus, the WSIS NGO Gender Strategies Working Group, and the Geneva Committee on the Status of Women to include gender in the WSIS Declaration of Principles. Paragraph 12 of the WSIS Declaration now reads as follows. We affirm that development of ICTs provides enormous opportunities for women who should be an integral part of and key actors in the information society. We are committed to ensuring that the information society enables women's empowerment and their full participation on the basis of equality in all spheres of society and in all decision-making processes. To this end, we should mainstream a gender equality perspective and use ICTs as a tool to that end. As part of a larger statement about enhancing infrastructure and access to ICTs for women, the session conclusions note that knowledge and technology transfer should occur on concessional, preferential, and favorable terms to the developing countries, as mutually agreed, taking into account the need to protect intellectual property rights and the specific needs of developing countries. With regard to ICTs in development, the foundation for the World Summit was a vision of the new information society where, in this society, new technologies, in particular ICTs, become an essential tool accessible to all for the attainment of a more peaceful, prosperous, and just world based upon our common humanity in all its diversity. So how should policymakers begin to rethink the ways that we define and understand gender? First, we need to distinguish women from gender or a gendered perspective. Second, we need to look for ways that gender distinctions are practiced and expressed locally in collaboration with those participating in ICT development projects. Finally, we need to be self-reflexive and examine the ways that we articulate and structure gender through our power to state policy and conduct research in this area. In India, various social innovations and organizations are currently being employed to increase access to technology for women. In New Delhi, Feminist Approach to Technology runs an outreach center that targets underprivileged girls. Among many things, they provide computer training, support women in technical professions, and advocate for gender-inclusive technology education. Internet Sati is an initiative in rural India that provides training and access to technology for women in areas where the infrastructure is inconducive to providing internet access on a broader range. In less than 2 years, This program has reached 1 million Indian women in 5 states. India's e-governance initiative installed CSCs in rural villages. Today, the country has more than 257,000 kiosks. The goal is to have one CSC for each rural local government. The kiosks, run by local entrepreneurs who fund the startup costs for computer and internet access, facilitate access to citizen records, banking, insurance, mobile recharges, e-ticketing, women's digital literacy programs, and basic literacy programs. In conclusion, technology plays a powerful, often behind-the-scenes role in connecting women to each other and to their capabilities. Although significant gender gaps persist in ICT familiarity, access, and utilization, it has become clear that social innovations can reduce these gaps. Successful initiatives would double the number of women in the IT industry within the next 5 years. They would increase the number of female inventors, executives, and scientists. They would double the number of scholarships for women seeking STEM degrees, especially minority women. And they would increase access to affordable coding camps and day programs for computer animation, web designing, and app development, targeting young girls. In India, several organizations have joined forces with the goal of increasing self-development opportunities for 15,000 girls aged 15 to 25, providing tutorial support on subjects like math, science, and English. They aim to reach girls and young women within their own communities to avoid the challenge of limited mobility and also work to raise awareness among girls on issues related to their safety and security. In all of the developing nations, the professional development of administrators, directors, teachers, and tutors is an ongoing and critical process for educational improvement. The paucity of cultural and linguistic digital content is another challenge currently being targeted in India as well as many other developing countries. Policy leadership and coordination will facilitate changes in curriculum, pedagogy, teacher training, and assessment. These changes will implement educational policies and programs that are coordinated with those in other ministries, such as telecommunications, economic development, human resource development, health, agriculture, rural and urban development. And above all else, the archaic dichotomy of gender schemas should find its eternal resting place 6 feet under, once and for all. As a proud woman in the IT industry, if I can disrupt the established order of just one company, I would consider it a privilege and an honor. As women, we're not only beautiful, we're strong, intelligent, resilient, and competent, equally as competent as our male counterparts. We're capable of not only childbirth, being nurturers, and keeping the house tidy. We're also businesswomen, lawmakers, and innovators. The world will be much more peaceful when we recognize the value of women and give them their due honor in society as well as the corporate world.